So this spoke to my soul, so I had to stop and share this. So I'm doing my Bible study, and I'm in Second Chronicles, chapter 20, I believe it's 26. And Amaziah, I believe I'm pronouncing his name right, Amaziah, who's the son of Joaz, is now king, and he's calling together the troops of Israel. Uh, he calls together 100,000 troops from the tribe of Benjamin, another 100,000 from uh, Ephraim. So he's calling together these different troops, all these different troops, and he pays hundreds of talents to these soldiers, Israelite soldiers, to prepare for invasion or war amongst the Arameans. And a man, this just jumped out at me, so I had to share this. I had to share this with you guys. So, because this is so relevant today, it's so applicable today. So Amaziah, he's getting all these troops together. He's paying them. He's paying them a lot of money to go to fight. And a man of God, a prophet of God, comes to him and says, "Listen, do not go to war with the Israelites. Do not take them, do not take them into war with you. In other words, do not partner, even though they are of Israel," right? Because remember, there's tribes. He's currently residing over Judah, Jerusalem. He's hiring what we would call mercenaries, something like that, right? Today you'd call them mercenaries, right? Soldiers who are hired, they're hired guns. That's what we use for today's language. And a man of God, a prophet of God, comes to him and said, "Do not hire these men even though they're of Israel, mind you, they're of Israel. They're of his own house. A different room in the house, but in the house nonetheless." He said, "Do not hire them. Do not take them into battle with you." And he asked the prophet why. The prophet says to him, "Because God is not with Israel at this time." Give you a little context. Israel had, under the previous king, Israel had backslid, which was Joaz. Israel started, going into what we all do, backsliding, worshiping other gods, Baal and stuff like that. So God had withdrew his presence from certain sects, certain groups of Israel. So the prophet says to him, "Do not take these Israelites with you into battle. Because even if you fight courageously with your alliance, God is going to cause you to lose." And the king says to the prophet at this time, he says, "But what about the money that I've paid them? All this money that I've paid them?" And the prophet said to him, "God is able and will give you much more than that." Stick a pin in there. Stop right there. There's a lot more to it, but stop right there. That hit home with me. It struck a chord with me, because there's investments I've made in people, with people, that I lost a lot, right? I lost a lot. And every now and then it haunts me, right? Like, wow, so much I lost. I lost so much. I put so much into this and everything, God, what about? And here I'm reading this passage and it resonates with me because the man of God, who was the prophet, said to the king, "Look, don't worry about that money that you invested in those soldiers. Don't worry about that. God is able to give you much more. Do not form an alliance with them, even though they are of your house." Because he says, God is not with the Israelites at this time. Do not form an alliance with them, because even if you fight courageously, God will allow your enemies to triumph over you. Just that right there just struck a chord with me, because folks, we got to understand that your own house, people who you're very close to, If God ain't with them, their lack of God's presence can be your downfall. Because the prophet said to him, even if you fight courageously, you will be overthrown by your enemy because God ain't with them. So God might be with you, but if the person that you're tied to don't have God's favor on them, they can be your downfall. And whatever you've invested with them and lost with them, the man of God said, listen, don't worry about that. God will give you that and much more back. That stuck a chord with me. I hope it sticks a chord with you. I hope it resonates with you. Whatever you've lost, whether it's in relationships, partnerships with the wrong people, don't worry about what you lost. God will give it back and some. Don't let it break you. Peace.